You've probably heard the term VMware thrown around in tech circles, right? It's this huge name in enterprise computing, but what does it actually mean? What does it do? Well, if you've ever just kind of nodded along, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to break down what VMware really is piece by piece. So here's our game plan. We're going to build this thing from the ground up. First, we'll get the big picture of what VMware even is. Then, we'll look at the actual physical hardware it all runs on. From there, we'll stack up the core software, check out the command center that runs the show, and finish up with the automation that makes it all so powerful. All right, let's just get right to it. The number one question I hear from students, from people at startups, from anyone just getting into this world is, what is VMware? Okay, so on paper, VMware is a publicly traded software company. Simple enough. What they sell is enterprise-level software that uses something called virtualization to create a software-defined data center. And I know, that's a whole lot of buzzwords, but stick with me, because we're going to make it all make perfect sense. Here's the core idea. The real goal behind everything they do. Take all that physical hardware, the actual servers, the storage drives, the networking gear, and turn it into one giant, flexible pool of resources that you control entirely with software. It's all about abstraction. And to really get that, you have to start where every data center begins, with the actual physical hardware. Just picture it, right? A room full of server racks, blinking lights everywhere. These are powerful, expensive computers that a company buys to run all of its applications. But here's the classic problem. A lot of the time, an application only uses a tiny fraction of the server's power. The rest of it is just sitting there, doing nothing. That's a huge waste of money and electricity. So the question becomes, how do you get more bang for your buck? And the solution is virtualization. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. You carve up these big physical servers into smaller, virtual pieces. So instead of one server running just one thing, you can have that same server running dozens of different things all at the same time, each in its own safe, isolated bubble. So how do you actually do that carving? Well, that's where the VMware software stack comes in. There are three main layers that work together to make this all happen. Let's build it up. Think about what makes a data center work. You've got your computers, your storage, and your network. VMware has a piece of software for each one. To virtualize the computers, or compute, they use vSphere. To virtualize all the storage, they use vSAN. And to virtualize the network, they use NSX. So just to make that super clear, vSphere handles the servers. You might have heard its older name, ESXi. vSAN takes all your physical hard drives and turns them into one big pool of storage, and NSX does the exact same thing for all your networking switches and routers. It's these three working together that's the key. And the result of this is pretty incredible. Once you install these software layers on top of your physical machines, you don't have a bunch of separate servers anymore. What you have is one massive, unified pool of compute, storage, and network power that you can dish out however you want. And from that giant pool, you can create anything. You need a standard virtual server with Windows or Linux and some apps? Boom, you can create one in minutes. Or maybe you're running more modern stuff with containers. You can create huge container environments for that too. The flexibility is just amazing. Okay, so this giant pool of virtual resources is awesome. But how on earth do you manage it all without going crazy? Well, that brings us to what you might call the magic sauce of the whole setup. And that magic sauce is called vCenter. Seriously, think of vCenter as the brain of the entire operation. It's a single piece of software that gives one person, an administrator, the keys to the entire kingdom. From one simple web portal, an admin can log in and do, well, everything. They can create new virtual servers, delete old ones, move them from one physical machine to another without any downtime. They can manage the entire virtual world from one screen. It's what makes this whole thing manageable at scale. So, we've got our virtualized hardware, and we've got our control center. We could stop there, right? Well, not really. To truly compete today, you need to make your data center not just virtual, but smart. You need automation. And that is where the vRealize suite comes in. This is another layer of software that sits on top of everything we've already built. Its whole job is to automate and simplify all those complex management tasks. Now, the two big players in this suite are VRA and VRO. The easiest way to remember them is this. vRealize Automation, or VRA, is the doing engine. It's what automatically builds servers, balances workloads, and resizes things. Then you have vRealize Operations, or VRO, which is the watching engine. It monitors absolutely everything in real time. And that watching part is so crucial. VRO gives you that real-time monitoring, sure, but it also pulls in all your logs into one place, handles security, and gives you these incredible analytics and dashboards so you can actually see and understand what's happening across thousands of virtual machines. So let's step back and look at the whole stack we just built. At the very bottom, you have your physical hardware. On top of that, you install the core virtualization layers, vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. You manage all of that with vCenter. And then you make it all smart and automated with the vRealize suite. It's a complete software stack running on top of physical gear.
And that whole thing we just described is the software-defined data center we mentioned at the start. It's this powerful, flexible, software-driven environment that has become the foundation for how most major companies run their most important applications today.
Which really leaves us with one final big question to think about. When you look at all this, it represents a massive shift in how we think about computing. It forces us to ask, is a data center just a collection of physical hardware in a room? Or is it really defined by the intelligent software that brings it all to life? The answer to that has changed everything.